The Toon Cards are both an archetype and a series of cards meant to parody some of Yu-Gi-Oh's earliest and most iconic monsters, while also referencing classic animations like Looney Tunes, and often portraying their monsters in exaggerated portrayals of their original counterparts. So in this video, we're going to focus on the best Toon cards in the game, why they're so strong in Toon decks, and even why they're so powerful in decks that aren't focused on Toons themselves. And at number 10, we have Toon Cannon Soldier, a level 4 Dark Machine monster that has the exact same stats as his original counterpart, Cannon Soldier. In fact, they both share the same effect that you can tribute any monster you control, including Toon Cannon Soldier itself, to inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Although Toon Cannon Soldier comes with the same downside as a lot of the original Toon monsters. It has summoning sickness, so it cannot attack the turn it's summoned. And if Toon World is destroyed while you control Toon Cannon Soldier, you must destroy it. However, while Toon Cannon Soldier gains the negatives of Toon monsters, it also gains the benefit shared amongst the archetype, in that while you control Toon World and your opponent controls no Toon monsters, Toon Cannon Soldier can attack directly. Now, technically speaking, Toon Cannon Soldier is just a worse version of the original Cannon Soldier. As while this card does have the same benefits of being able to attack directly, you need to wait a full turn for the Toon Summoning Sickness to wear off, and you need to control Toon World in order to get any real benefit out of the effect. While the original Cannon Soldier can just attack on the turn it's summoned, either for a decent chunk of damage or to destroy one of your opponent's monsters by battle. But while the original Cannon Soldier might technically be the better card, both are just as capable of FTKing your opponent. This is because neither card has a hard once per turn on its effect to inflict burn damage. So, provided you can keep supplying Toon Cannon Soldier with monsters, you can keep tributing them off in order to constantly keep burning your opponent for 500 damage, eventually reducing your opponent's life points to 0 without even needing a battle phase. At first glance, this task may appear somewhat Herculean, as in order to fully reduce your opponent's life points to 0, you need to tribute 20 monsters in one turn. However, several strategies were capable of providing more than enough fodder for each of the Cannon Soldiers. Danger Dark World FTK was one such strategy, and used its impressive ability to summon out numerous bodies to the field in order to summon out pre-errata Firewall Dragon, Grapha, and Toon Cannon Soldier. With this setup, you can tribute the Grapha that the Firewall points to with Cannon Soldier and trigger Firewall Dragon's effect to summon out another monster from your hand. And if you summon a Dark World monster, you can return it to your hand in order to summon out Grapha again to the zone where Firewall Dragon points to. And because then Firewall's effect had no once per turn, you could tribute the Grapha again with Cannon Soldier to burn for another 500 damage, trigger Firewall's effect once again, resulting in an infinite loop capable of dealing an infinite amount of damage. Although this particular FTK is no longer legal due to the errata, there are a number of other strategies capable of performing similar loops in order to FTK your opponent. And in some cases, other decks actually preferred Toon Cannon Soldier in order to use Toon support to their advantage. Some Magical Explosion FTK decks use Toon Cannon Soldier in order to have a target for Toon Table of Contents to set up their graveyard with spell cards, while also inflicting an extra bit of burn damage in order to bring your opponent closer to being FTK'd. In fact, these FTK strategies actually managed to prove so strong that in 2018, every single Cannon Soldier was banned in the OCG. Although in actual Toon strategies, Toon Cannon Soldier sees virtually no play, which is why it only makes the number 10 spot on this list. The card is great in being an FTK enabler for many strategies, but it does almost nothing to actually help out Toons as a strategy. Whereas the next card on this list is actually a boon for Toon decks. And at number 9, we have Red Eye's Toon Dragon, a card clearly inspired by Red Eye's Black Dragon. But unlike its original counterpart, Red Eye's Toon Dragon actually has an effect. It has the same effects as most other Toon monsters, being unable to attack the turn it's summoned, and being able to attack your opponent directly while you control Toon World. But it also comes with its own original effect that you can special summon out any Toon monster from your hand by ignoring its summoning conditions, except Red Eye's Toon Dragon. Being able to special summon out any Toon monster from your hand is actually excellent for the deck, as most level 5 or higher Toon monsters are actually somewhat difficult to bring out on their own. Toon Barrel Dragon, for example, has no innate summoning condition to allow it to be brought out, and would otherwise require 2 tributes to normal summon to the field, making it a pretty huge investment. And the fact that it ignores summoning conditions is also excellent for Toon strategies, as a lot of the older Toon cards, such as Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, not only needed Toon World on the field, but also required you to tribute monsters or to special summon out the card for its summoning condition, essentially requiring 3 cards of investment. But with Red Eye's Toon Dragon, you can special summon almost any Toon monster for free. But Red Eye's Toon Dragon doesn't come with its own innate summoning conditions, so it begs the question, how do Toon decks actually bring Red Eye's Toon Dragon to the field? An interesting quirk about Toon cards is that some of them don't just belong to the regular Toon archetype, they also belong to the same archetype as their regular version, allowing them to use cards that support that archetype to aid their 2 counterparts. And in the case of Red Eyes, Toon decks often use the Blackstone of Legend as their main normal summon. You see, by normal summoning out the Blackstone of Legend, you could use this effect to tribute itself to special summon Red Eyes Toon Dragon directly from your deck, giving Toon decks an easy way to bring out Toon Red Eyes with ease. And because Toon Red Eyes special summons a monster from your hand, a single Blackstone of Legend essentially represents 2 Toon monsters on your side of the field. even without controlling Toon World. In essence, Red Eye's Toon Dragon is an essential part of current Toon strategies to swarm the field and saves you a ton of resources that you would have otherwise spent on bringing out other Toon monsters, and it's capable of using both half of its names to its advantage. The reason why it's only number 9 spot is because it's not very good in other strategies that aren't Toon, including Red Eye's decks. And there are other Toon cards which are capable of swarming better than Red Eye's Toon Dragon, and even other Toons which gain a ton of benefits because of the secondary archetype it's from, like the next card in this list. And at number 8, we have Toon Cyber Dragon, a modern Toon support card that actually managed to see a large amount of competitive play. It has a drawback and benefit as most of the Toon monsters, in that it can't attack the turn it summon, but can attack directly when you control Toon World. And it also comes with the same summoning condition as the original Cyber Dragon, in that when your opponent controls a monster and you control no monsters, you can special summon Toon Cyber Dragon from your hand. On its own, Toon Cyber Dragon just represents an easy way to special summon out a Toon monster in order to swarm your field, which is pretty good. But the real power of Toon Cyber Dragon, like Red Eye's Toon Dragon, is in the secondary archetype it's part of, Cyber Dragon. And in Cyber Dragon decks, Toon Cyber Dragon essentially acts as extra copies of Cyber Dragon that can be used alongside cards like Cyber Dragon Naster and Cyber Emergency. Due to its name and particular stat line, and actually saw play in a few topping Cyber Dragon lists for its actual archetypal synergy. But the main reason why it saw competitive play was actually due to both of the archetypes in its name, making it a premier going second tool, even in decks that weren't Toon or Cyber Dragon. You see, from 2017 to 2019, Yugioh had entered a new Master Rule known as Master Rule 4. And during this specific time period, if you wanted to summon out extra deck monsters to your side of the field, you either had to do it in the extra monster zone, or to a zone where a link monster was pointing to. This meant that during this time period, most decks that access the extra deck either use link monsters to access their other extra deck boss monsters, or play link strategies like Goki that were capable of extra linking your opponent, taking up both extra monster zones, knocking your opponent out of the extra deck entirely. This was an issue for any strategy that wanted to use their extra deck. But thankfully, Cyber Dragons had their own in-archetype counter in Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon, which was capable of clearing away both extra monster zones by contact fusing them with any Cyber Dragon monster while also giving you a high attack monster to beat over your opponent's board, all without activating a single monster effect. This strategy was so effective at countering link strategies and extra links that other decks would incorporate it into their decks. And for Sky Striker strategies, Toon Cyber Dragon was the Cyber Dragon of choice above even the original. While the original Cyber Dragon could attack on the turn you summoned it, Toon Cyber Dragon was searchable through Toon Table of Contents. You see, Sky Striker decks really like putting spell cards into the graveyard in order to gain access to the bonus effects of their archetypal spells. And with Toon Table of Contents, you could search for another Toon Table to search for the third Toon Table to finally search for the Toon Cyber Dragon, putting all 3 spells into the graveyard that were necessary for the bonus effects of Sky Striker spells while giving you an excellent tool to wipe your opponent's board. And this particular strategy was actually so powerful in Striker specifically that it helped form the basis of Sky Striker Trains, a deck focused on utilizing the Sky Striker spells in order to break your opponent's board and gain advantage, and the rank 10 train cards to OTK your opponent. And it just so happens that Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon is a level 10 monster, making it perfect material to be used and overlay into Gustav Max. Overall, Toon Cyber Dragon is a deceptively powerful card that's a strong tool in breaking boards. Although it doesn't see too much competitive play in the modern era, since fewer decks really rely on link monsters in order to set up their plays due to the introduction of Master Rule 4 revisions, which allowed any monster in the extra deck other than links and pendulums to be summoned out to any zone, but is still technically usable in modern Toon strategies too. But the next card on this list is even better for Toon decks. Making their appearance at number 7 is Toon Dark Magician, another Toon monster based on the classic vanilla monster. Like most other Toon monsters, it cannot attack the turn it summoned, but can attack directly while you control Toon World. But just like with Toon Red Eyes, despite being based on a normal monster, Toon Dark Magician also comes with its own unique bonus effects. On a soft once per turn, by discarding any Toon card, you can either choose to special summon any Toon monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions, or you can instead choose to add any Toon spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. Just like with Red Eye's Toon Dragon, Toon Dark Magician has a lot going for it and is an integral part in helping you swarm the field with Toon monsters, allowing you to special summon out almost any Toon monster from your deck, even while ignoring summoning conditions, all at the cost of a single discard. So, like with Toon Red Eyes, you could summon out an otherwise difficult to use Toon monster that required a lot of setup, like Toon Summon Skull. But these two cards also happen to combo together quite well, as while they aren't capable of summoning out other copies of themselves, they can summon out each other. So with Toon Dark Magician, you can summon out Toon Red Eyes from your deck, and that Toon Red Eyes could summon another Toon monster from your hand, even another Toon Dark Magician, which is particularly useful given that its effect is only a soft once per turn. That's not where the synergies of these cards ends, because just like their non-Toon counterparts, they're both level 7. You see, usually Toon decks don't really rely too much on their extra deck in order to win games. There are of course exceptions to this rule. Toon Cyber Dragon lets you go into Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon, and Toon Harpy Lady lets you go into Cyber / Harpy Lady, but more often than not, Toons are reliant on their main deck monsters and back row in order to win games. But because both Toon Dark Magician and Toon Red Eyes are level 7 and combo well with each other, it gives Toon decks easy access to the rank 7 pool. This is particularly important for Toon List as it gives them access to cards like number 11 Big Eye, Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, and even Volar Fringe, the Darkest Dragon Doom Rider, whose effective pop will also be quick effect because Red Eyes Toon Dragon just so happens to be a dragon. And that's not all, because instead of special summoning any Toon monster from your deck, you could instead add any Toon Spell or Trap from your deck to your hand. For example, you can add the original Toon World if you want to allow your Toon monsters to be able to attack directly, or something like Toon Briefcase or Toon Terror as a form of interruption during your opponent's turn. While not the best possible way you can search Toon cards since you need a Toon discard, Toon Dark Magician has impressive versatility due to the modularity of its effect, and due to the strength of being able to summon out any Toon from your deck, and even makes summoning the next card on this list a lot easier. And at number 6, we have Toon Blackluster Soldier, a level 8 Toon monster that, unlike the first Blackluster Soldier, isn't a ritual monster at all. But its summoning condition is made to mirror their ritual summon, as in order to bring out Toon BLS, you must tribute Toon monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equals 8 or more. And that's not the only interesting quirk about Toon Blackluster Soldier, because you see, Toon Blackluster Soldier has the ability to attack directly while you control a Toon world, like most other Toon monsters, but unlike other Toon monsters, Toon Blackluster Soldier doesn't come with the same downside of being unable to attack on the turn it's summoned. This attack prevention is instead tied to Toon BLS's second effect, where you can target and banish any card in the field. But Toon BLS can't attack if you use it, actually mirroring the first effect of Blackluster Soldier and Void the Beginning almost exactly. In fact, Toon Blackluster Soldier's banishing effect is actually better than Envoy of the Beginning, as it's capable of banishing any card in the field, not just a monster. So not only can you use Toon BLS to deal with your opponent's boss monsters, you can also use it to clear away your opponent's powerful back row, including floodgates that would otherwise put a stop to Toon strategies like Rivalry of the Warlords. Its summoning condition, however, is a little bit harder to fulfill, as it requires you to tribute either one really high level or multiple lower level Toon monsters in order to special summon it. Now, this is slightly better than summoning condition of a card like Blue Eyes Toon Dragon, but it's still a large commitment nonetheless. This is where Toon Dark Magician and Red Eyes Toon Dragon can also prove their might, as because both of these cards ignore summoning conditions, you instead get to summon out Toon Blackluster Soldier for free, swarming the field while also giving you the option to remove any card from the field. But if you choose not to use the effect, Toon Blackluster Soldier also has another merit in its favor: it can attack during the turn it's summoned. This can be a boon to clear away your opponent's board using the battle phase, but if you control Toon World, Toon BLS can attack directly during the very first turn it's brought out. This has formed the basis of many going second Toon strategies, as previously, Toon decks had no monsters they could use in order to attack over your opponent's monster, clear the board, or OTK with on turn 2, since every Toon prevented itself from attacking during the turn it was summoned. Overall, Toon BLS has proven itself to be an integral part of modern Toon strategies, and has provided the deck with a boss monster to strive for that circumvents the usual downsides of Toons while also giving its main benefit, and is arguably the best Toon monster currently in the game. But this list is for Toon cards, and even with how powerful Toon Blackluster Soldier is, there are plenty of Toon cards which trump its strengths, like the next card in this list. And at number 5, we have Toon Page-Flip, the first Toon spell card on this list. This is a quick play spell card that can only be activated while you control Toon World, and you can only activate one of it per turn. But if you do activate it, you get to reveal 3 Toon monsters from your deck with different names, and then your opponent picks one of them at random to special summon to your field while ignoring its summoning conditions. At first glance, Toon Page-Flip's effect doesn't seem so impressive. Being able to act as an e-tally for Toons is of course a powerful effect, but the fact that it's random means that you're not always guaranteed to get the card you want. For example, you may be in a situation where you really need Toon Cyber Dragon to clear your opponent's Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess, but you might instead be forced to summon your Toon Dark Magician Girl or Toon Gemini Elf instead. And the fact that you need to control Toon World or even to activate in the first place makes it seem a lot worse than Toon Dark Magician at first. But while Toon Page-Flip is somewhat random, you do get to choose the cards that could potentially be summoned out to the field. So you could just pick the best Toons you have in your deck. In most cases, Toon decks will opt to summon Toon Dark Magician, Red Eyes Toon Dragon, and Toon Blackluster Soldier. This particular trio allows Toon Page-Flip to be an amazing starter for Toon decks no matter what monster is randomly summoned by the opponent. In the case of Toon Red Eyes, you get to swarm the field by summoning another Toon from your hand. In the case of Toon Dark Magician, you get to summon out another Toon from your deck. And while summoning out Toon Blackluster Soldier doesn't provide you with any form of extension, Toon Page-Flip allows you to summon out Toon BLS for free without requiring any sort of tribute. In contrast, while Toon Dark Magician is certainly powerful, and it has a more consistent effect when compared to Toon Page-Flip, it's also harder to commit to the field and usually requires you already have the ability to combo off already with something like Blackstone of Legend for Toon Red Eyes in order to bring it out. Meanwhile, Toon Page-Flip only requires that you have a face-up Toon World on your side of the field to activate, a card that Toon decks have easy access to given how searchable it is, making it a lot easier to use when compared to Toon Dark Magician, even if they both require some level of setup. Opening up to number 4 is Toon Bookmark, a normal spell with 2 pretty strong effects. You can only activate one of its card name per turn, and when you do, you get to add a Toon World or a card that mentions Toon World in its effect text from your deck to your hand, except to Toon Bookmark itself, giving it a wide array of Toon cards it can search. And that's not all. It also comes with the bonus effect that while it's in the graveyard, if Toon World would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish Toon Bookmark from your graveyard instead. Toon Bookmark is an incredible cubable search spell, and one that other archetypes would be grateful to have, as it's not only capable of searching Toon World, the card the Toon decks are centered around in order to play, it can search any card which mentions it. This includes every single Toon monster other than Toon Alligator, important play starters like Toon Page-Flip, and even extremely powerful interruptions tools like Toon Terror. More often than not, you'll be using Toon Bookmark to search either Toon World or Toon Kingdom in order to set up your field to use cards which require Toon World to be face up. But having the option of being able to search other powerful cards in your deck allows the card to be absurdly flexible. And that's not all, because as well as searching almost your entire deck, Toon Bookmark is also capable of protecting your face-up Toon World. You see, Toon decks heavily rely on having a face-up Toon World in order to make their plays, activate most of their powerful card effects, and attack directly with Toon monsters. So, if your opponent sees you're on a Toon strategy, they will be inclined to remove Toon World from the field as soon as possible with something like Twin Twisters or Conquistador Golden Land, in order to stop you from using your best cards and shutting down half your deck. But Toon Bookmark allows you to protect your face-up Toon World by banishing itself from the graveyard, keeping your Toon World up, and giving you an opportunity to make your plays. Overall, Toon Bookmark is an excellent search spell that not only is capable of searching out most of your cards in your deck, including the most important card in Toons, but it's also capable of protecting that Toon World from your opponent's card effects, which is why it makes it to number 4 spot in this list. There are, of course, some limits to Toon Bookmark's strength. While it can search most cards in your arsenal, some Toon cards like Toon Briefcase and Toon Rollback don't mention Toon World in their text at all, making them impossible to search when you're using Toon Bookmark. But even then, the card is still an astonishing searcher that can search some of the best cards in your deck, like the next card on this list. Reaching in at number 3 is Comic Hand, an equip spell that has an effect that mirrors one of the strongest spell cards in the game, Snatch Steal. You can only activate it when you control a face-up Toon World, but if you do, you can equip Comic Hand to an opponent's monster and take control of it. And not only do you get to take control of that monster, it also becomes a Toon monster and can attack your opponent directly while you control it. But if Toon World is not face up on the field, Comic Hand destroys itself. Stealing any monster your opponent controls is an effect shared by many cards that have featured on the Forbidden and Limit list due to how amazing stealing a monster is. Change of Heart was only recently brought back to 1, Brain Control had to be eroded to curb its power level, and Snatch Steal is currently still banned to this day. And Comic Hand effect, while less generic, is arguably stronger than a card like Snatch Steal, because not only do you get to steal your opponent's best monster and use their effects, those monsters also become Toon monsters, letting whatever you steal synergize with your entire deck. So if you steal something like your opponent's access code talker, that access code becomes a Toon, allowing you to use cards like Toon Terror and Mimic Cat without needing to commit any of your own monsters. And because there's no attack restriction on the monster Comic Hand is attached to, it can even be used as a way to easily OTK your opponent alongside something like Toon Blackluster Soldier by attacking your opponent's life points directly even on a full board. And the fact that Comic Hand has no once per turn makes it an excellent tool for Toon decks that happen to be going second. Now, Comic Hand does come with a few bad downsides. Like a lot of Toon cards, it does require you needing to control a Toon World, and if your Toon World is removed from the field, Comic Hand blows itself up, which gives control of the monster back to your opponent, potentially allowing them to make a comeback. And furthermore, it's not a Toon card, meaning it can't be searched out with something like Toon Table of Contents or discarded by Toon Dark Magician. Although it is still searchable by Toon Bookmark because it mentions Toon World in its text. Still, Comic Hand is an amazing addition to the Toon arsenal, and no doubt its strongest archetypal going second tool, and could potentially lock your opponent under their own monsters. Rising into number 2 is Toon Kingdom, a Toon field spell which has become the main card modern Toon decks are built around. When you activate it, you have to banish 3 cards from the top of your deck face down, and while it's face up on the field, its name becomes Toon World, and it gives your Toon monsters a variety of strong protections. Toon Kingdom prevents your Toon monsters from being targeted by card effects, and if a Toon monster would be destroyed by a battle or card effect, you can banish cards on top of your deck equal to the number of Toon monsters that would be destroyed instead. Prior to the release of Toon Kingdom, Toon decks had a lot of key issues which really held them back in terms of viability. Their summoning sickness, their lack of protection, and perhaps most devastating, the entire deck was built around using Toon World. And Toon World is a continuous spell card that does nothing, and requires 1000 life points in order to even activate. So in order to set up their plays, older Toon decks were required to play Toon World, a card that does literally nothing in order to actually gain the benefits from their Toon monsters. And in the cases where you don't draw Toon World, you'd have to use your valuable search card like Toon Table of Contents in order to find it, instead of searching for an actually useful card. This all changed with the release of Toon Kingdom. This field spell revolutionized Toon strategies by giving them a Toon World that's actively beneficial for the deck, and has even allowed for Toon decks to cut Toon World completely from their list, as the card is no longer necessary in order to attack directly with Toons and use their powerful spell and trap cards like Comet can. And the effect that Toon Kingdom provides is actually pretty good, and solves yet another issue for Toon decks, their lack of protection. In the past, Toon monsters were superbly vulnerable to any form of removal. They were essentially glass cannons, capable of dealing huge amounts of damage to OTK your opponent by bypassing their own field of monsters, but also losing to an opponent's card effect like Book of Moon, or even being over by a monster with just a higher attack. However, while Toon Kingdom is face up on the field, your Toon monsters are protected from all forms of destruction and targeting by your opponent, essentially making every single Toon monster a pseudo-towers on par with Red Eye's Dark Dragoon. In fact, the protection these Toons have is technically better than Red Eye's Dark Dragoon, as they're also protected from battle as well. All you need to do is banish a single card from the top of your deck for every Toon that would be destroyed. And while it's possible that you could banish an important card like Comet can, it's more than worth it to protect your Toons. The protection is so strong that your Toon monsters are virtually guaranteed to see the next turn when their summoning sickness wears off, where they can then proceed to attack your opponent directly, actually giving Toons a viable route to OTK your opponent. And even if your opponent tries to deal with Toon Kingdom, you can just use your graveyard effect of Toon Bookmark to protect it while it's on the field, since it is treated as Toon World while on the field. All in all, Toon Kingdom's downsides are minor in comparison to everything else it does for Toon decks, giving the strategy a viable Toon World that gives them protection and provides the deck with a viable route to OTKing, even with their summoning sickness, solving virtually every one of the deck's former issues, making it the second best Toon card in the game. Yet, even with how good Toon Kingdom is, there is one more Toon card, which does even more for Toon strategies, and even strategies that aren't Toon. And last but not least, the best Toon card in the game is Toon Table of Contents. This normal spell has a simple but deceptively strong effect that has allowed you to see a large amount of competitive play. And it has the effect where you can add any Toon card from your deck to your hand. Like with Toon Bookmark, part of the power of Toon Table of Contents is its inherent power being able to search out basically your entire deck. There are some limits to Toon Table of Contents, like you can't add the card Comet Can or Mimicat since they technically don't have Toon in their name. But you can use Toon Table of Contents to search out Toon Bookmark, to then search out those cards since they mention Toon World, making Toon Table of Contents the key to accessing every single part of your deck in some way when you're playing Toons, including other copies of itself, since a Toon Table of Contents is also a Toon card, and Toon Table of Contents also has no once per turn on it. So you can use Toon Table of Contents to search out another Toon Table of Contents to search out yet another Toon Table of Contents. Now, in theory, this always results in a net neutral in terms of card advantage, as you're just trading one copy of Toon Table of Contents for another until you eventually run out. And for Toon decks, this is true, but this way of using this card has allowed it to see competitive play as a Toon engine in certain strategies that want to set up their graveyard with spell cards. Magical Explosion FTK decks would often pair Toon Table of Contents alongside Toon Cannon Soldier, in order to set up their graveyard with a lot of spells to burn your opponent for large amounts of damage. And spellbook decks in the past would often pair Toon Table of Contents alongside Toon spellcasters like Toon Gemini Elf, as a single Toon Table of Contents represents 3 spell cards that are being sent to the graveyard, which allows Spellbook of Judgment to search out a ton of cards in your end phase and provides every spell necessary for the summon of Jiaojin the Spiritualist to lock your opponent out of special summoning. Even in the modern era, Toon Table of Contents was used alongside Magical Musketeer strategies in order to have an easily activatable spell card to trigger musket effects, and was even meta relevant in Sky Striker strategies as a single Toon Table of Contents puts 3 spells in the graveyard, allowing Sky Strikers to gain access to the bonus effects of their spell cards. With Toon Cyber Dragon, Toon Table is even a generic going second option in order to deal with your opponent's Link monsters with the use of Chimera Tag Megafleet Dragon. For Toons, Toon Table of Contents is an amazing search spell that allows you to access your entire deck and can search out any card you need. Toon Kingdom or Toon Page-Flip up to start your plays, Toon Bookmark to gain access to cards like Comic Hand, or even powerful Toon monsters like Toon Blackluster Soldier. But in other decks, Toon Table of Contents is more than just a searcher, it's a powerful tool that enables a lot of interesting strategies that rely on spell cards, and has even been able to see meta relevance for its ability to search out and use other copies of itself, which is why it's the best Toon card in the game. Alright, and that's the list. If you know of any other Toon cards you may have missed, or have any ideas for future videos just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.